Before we dive into the ASP.NET MVC framework, I want to give you just a brief overview of MVC. It's a programming pattern that divides an application into three parts so that data that is represented to users is kept separate from how it is stored and represented internally. The three letters MVC stand for the three parts of the application. M is for model, V is for view, and C is for controller. The model is generally the business layer, so it is responsible for knowing how to access the data that will eventually be displayed to the user. The view is essentially the user interface. It's responsible for taking the model data and generating the output that is displayed to the user. The controller is aptly named because it essentially controls the application. It's primarily responsible for handling user input, and that sounds rather simple, but in actuality, there's a lot involved with handling user input. The controller has to first of all determine what the user wants, and then communicate with the model in order to get the data that will then be sent to the view to be displayed to the user. So while an MVC application needs a model and a view, the controller is probably the most important part of the application. Without it, the model doesn't know what data to get, and the view doesn't know what to generate for the user. Now, the ASP.NET MVC framework is Microsoft's interpretation of the MVC pattern. It's not a pure MVC implementation, but then again, you'll be hard-pressed to find one. You can look at Laravel, Ruby on Rails, Django, and really any other MVC framework, and you'll find that they too don't adhere to all of MVC's principles. Microsoft designed their MVC framework to be extensible. This means that you can swap out components with any other component that would fit that particular need. Now, for example, there's a built-in view engine. Actually, there's two built-in view engines, and this is just an example of the extensibility of the MVC framework. You can choose what view engine that you want, and if you don't like the two built-in view engines, you can write your own, or you can use a third-party view engine. There's many out there, but that's just an example. Just about anything within an ASP.NET MVC application can be swapped out with something else. Microsoft also designed their MVC framework to be testable. You can take the individual components and test them in isolation. Now, we're not going to cover testing in this course, but we do have a course on testing an ASP.NET MVC application. So if that is something that interests you, be sure to check it out after you finish this course. So in short, ASP.NET MVC is a powerful framework that you can use to write web applications. And in the next lesson, we are going to look at the anatomy of an MVC application.